Yes, I'm wearing an owl hat. How metal of me. Hey, RV family, keep it I keep it tight. My name is Jay Morser. Again, I'm back again to bring you another video, and in this one I'm going to be covering the brand new Numenorean album entitled Adore. So Numenorean, this is their second studio-length album, as well as their second release on Season of Mist Records. They're a 5-man post-black metal band from Canada, and they were formed in 2011. I was actually tipped off from a viewer to check out one of the singles from this album. I forget which one it was, and it quickly became one of my favorite black metal songs of the year. And to be honest, Numenorean is a band that I hadn't really heard of before now, and that's coming from someone that is a fan of Season of Mist. I love quite a few bands from them. I anticipated this album so hard because every single single that released in anticipation of this album were absolute fire from front to back. Technicality and simplicity going head-to-head to create a really nice tapestry of sound and noise and beauty, and the moments that it was hauntingly beautiful, it maintained like this ethereal veneer to it, and the heavy parts were thrilling. They were a roller coaster ride, they were punching, they were ear-piercing, the vocals were shrieked and growled and layered, the production was claustrophobic and dense, the atmosphere was dense. These sick, twisted, labyrinth melodies that these guitars were forming alongside punchy drums that were throttling in the background. I was really hoping Numenorean was going to come through with a great album because, to be honest, post-black metal, it's a genre that I can't really get into that much. I'm very picky with. There are some select few albums that I really do enjoy and select bands that I do really enjoy, but a lot of them are long-winded. A lot of them really just stay their welcome too long. A lot of them don't really pay that much heed to original compositions. And you can call me a hypocrite because, like, one of my 10 out of 10s this year could be called a post-black metal album. To put it lightly, TLDR, literally Numenorean came through in spades. Nocebo opens up the track listing with this sweltering, atmospheric, orchestral instrumental with some humming. The crescendo that this reaches near the end with those notes just pounding up and down, it really does sound like kind of like the gut-wrenching, just emotionally poignant part of a film. It goes to show how much instrumentals can talk just as much as vocals can talk. It's not the most, like, experimental or technical or proficient type of instrumental, but to be honest, I can't help but just feel when I'm listening to this, just like, all hope is lost. The hero's on their knees. The villain has a knife to their throat. They do a lot with nothing to start out this track, and it's 2 minutes and 31 seconds. For an instrumental opener, never thought I'd really say this that much with a black metal album. I wish it was longer. Portrait of Pieces opens up with some more simplicity, but in a good way. They go the long way. They do a lot with very little. I do love the low, down-tuned bass line on this track, and the guitar that builds with it, and these drums almost sound, or actually this whole composition to start, it sounds something like a funeral doom metal song almost, or just a doom metal song, something you'd hear from like a Bell Witch or a Mournful Congregation. But when it goes hard, and when it goes hard, it's very heavy and blistering. The guitar lines are absolutely frigid. I do think the bass can get drowned out in this part, but it's a super frigid, just cacophony of pain, and the vocals are shrieks, they're growls, sometimes they layer them. That's something across this entire album. They like to blend the two, and there's also singing on this album. Portrait of Pieces, when it comes to the drum line on the track, sounds a lot like kind of old school black metal, so fans of old school black metal will definitely like the drum line. Some of the guitar crescendos and bells and whistles on this track remind me almost of a thrash metal track, and some of those melodies that it creates almost reminds me of a progressive metal track. Lots of influences going into a band that kind of fits squarely into one genre, but is so much more than that. The ending of the track sounds tortured. It sounds hellish. His screams are so echoed, so reverb. They're kind of background in the atmosphere, just drowning in this like twisting nether of sorrow and grief. When I first heard Horizon, I was a little worried it was kind of like a generic post-black metal track because it really did seem that way to me, and it really did feel like a step down from the 2 tracks that started out the album. But when it hits that acoustic guitar line near the end, I fell in love with this track. It's amazing, it's beautiful, and the instrumentation, while it is a little bit one-dimensional and cookie-cutter by post-black metal standards, Numenorean does a lot with it. And Nothing Was the Same is an amazing interlude. Once again, it's kind of like Nocebo, where it has this sweltering, atmospheric instrumental. The guitars, once again, reminds me a lot of some of the lines you'd hear off the bass guitar from Bell Witch, or from a band like Mournful Congregation. Very paced, very kind of sad. It invokes so much kind of like depressive emotion just by playing it, just strumming it very slowly. It feels like the type of thing like you're just looking out your window with like a glass of just beer or something and just contemplating life. Regret, if I remember correctly, was the track that got me into Numenorean. The opening distorted intro with those screams are amazing. At first, this track almost seems a little metalcore inspired, something similar to like a Converge, something similar like a Code Orange, something very heavy and noisy, but still having that like rough edge that leans more towards like black metal or death metal or just much more heavier sounds. The guitars are cutthroat, they're gripping, they're nice, they're not too technical, but they're not too simplistic. The drums are bone saw and visceral and nice. Stay, kind of another interlude, but it's more of an actual fleshed out track, and I feel like a broken record. The atmosphere is amazing on this track. This kind of incorporates singing into oblivion, reverbed out, echoed out. It sounds amazing the way it just gets swallowed by this composition that is just, the guitars lead it. The guitars 100% lead these more atmospheric passages in these atmospheric tracks. It doesn't need to do much. It's just strummed. It's just melodic. It just has a little bit of mixing, a little bit of reverb, and it just echoes out. And just for the theme of this album, which is mostly about nature, grief, sorrow, that type of thing, it just works so well. And maybe if it was anything else, I wouldn't be saying that. Coma, for the most part, is probably my least favorite track on the album. It does do what I thought the third track was going to do, where it does go into a little bit atypical black metal territory. I do like the bass line that ends out the track, but for the most part, the kind of crushing instrumentation and vocals that fills out this track are nothing that's really blowing my socks off or really making me be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Alone is maybe my favorite track on the album. How do I start to explain this? Broken record incoming. Atmosphere. His voice. Tell me that this doesn't sound like Swallow the Sun. Like a Swallow the Sun track off their new album that they released this year. When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, my first 10 out of 10 of the year. It sounds so much like that. His singing is that lower register, or something like Maynard James Keenan from Tool. It starts with this strumming, this very minimalist approach, and then it just explodes into just atmosphere, beauty, and just such a nice sheen, like a cloak that's just put over this track, making it more and more beautiful as it progresses, and really building up to this amazing climax. Some of the slower parts on the self-titled track, Adore, are very nice. I like how they layer vocals. I love the growls on this track. They sound monstrous. They sound like they're coming from the belly of a grizzly bear. Once again, I feel like it can get a bit one-dimensional, but here's the thing when I call this album one-dimensional on certain tracks. That's not me saying it's a bad track, it's just me saying as you go through repeated listens, as you listen to it multiple times, you're gonna start getting that feeling that, oh, maybe this is a little bit atypical, but Numenorean plays it with such finesse, such pizzazz, such spice, that it's impossible not to just drown in these compositions, even if they aren't like the most original things you're ever gonna hear from this genre. DDHS is a nice little folk instrumental that ends out the track listing. Very beautiful, very minimalist. I think that for this album, it works well. If it was for like any other album, I probably would be like, this kind of feels like filler, this shouldn't be here, but for some reason, I can't put my finger on it. For Numenorean, it just makes so much sense. So if Numenorean having a name after a Tolkien place wasn't epic enough, they came through with an amazing album. Really sad that I haven't heard of this band before and was not able to check out their debut album back when it came out in, I believe, 2016. This is a crushing album, a technical album. It finds such grace in technicality, yet simplicity at times. I do love the atmospheres. I do love how dense and claustrophobic the mix is. The vocals are very good. The performances of every band member are flawless, pretty much. I love this album to death. We just had Periphery's album get a 9 out of 10 as of the recording of this video. I hope the Periphery albums come out. But yeah, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Please stay for the end screen. I'll link some videos you might be interested in. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. And smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. Like and comment on this video if you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys next time. My name is Jay Morse, Review Guy. I'm signing off saying farewell.